Jacqueline Finch had the perfect life for a book-loving librarian. A redundancy, to be sure, for had anyone ever met a librarian who wasn't a book lover? As of 3 months ago, she owned a small store called 3 Tomes Bookshop in the picturesque town of Button Cove, nestled on the upper left corner of the Michigan Mitten, right on Lake Michigan. The area had been called Land of Delight by the indigenous peoples who'd lived there centuries before the European emigration, and there could be no better phrase to describe the lush rolling hills, the vast, sparkling blue water, the loamy green forests, and the sandy dunes that rose along the westernmost coast of Michigan. Jacqueline could hardly wait to see how gorgeous Button Cove and the area looked in the autumn, when the leaves changed. But for now, she had the summer season looming ahead of her, something she both dreaded and anticipated. "You'll have a love-hate relationship with them," her friend Suzette Wally had told her, speaking of the tourists that would descend on the region beginning Memorial Day weekend, and not let up until after fall color tours in mid-October. "Your sales will be off the charts, but at the same time you'll be overrun by them. Most are lovely, friendly people, and others, not so much." Suzette would know. She owned Sweet Devotion, the bakery across the street from 3 Tomes, and had lived in Button Cove most of her adult life. "I'll batten down the hatches," said Jacqueline with a grin, wondering if she was going to need to hire extra help for the summer season. Currently, she was the only employee at 3 Tomes, unless you counted Mrs. Hudson and Mrs. Danvers, and using the term employee to describe either of them was laughable. Mrs. Hudson's other position was landlady to none other than Sherlock Holmes at 221B Baker Street in London, and Mrs. Danvers was the haughty, creepy, intimidating housekeeper at Manderley, where the ill-fated Rebecca of Daphne du Maurier's famous novel had lived. The 2 women, who were presumably still landlady and housekeeper in their fictional worlds, also worked at 3 Tomes. Jacqueline couldn't get rid of them even if she tried. And she'd tried. The motherly Mrs. Hudson wasn't so bad. She ran the tea room on the 2nd floor of the bookshop, except that the word coffee was anathema to her. She refused to hear a word about offering the demon bean to any of their customers, and Jacqueline had taken to hiding the coffee she brewed safely and secretly in her flat on the 3rd floor of the building, and in a large thermos in the shop's back room. Mrs. Danvers was, well, she was kind of scary.